Hi, welcome to another episode of Living Resilient. And today we have as a guest Voke Adams, who is a vice president student development at the University of the West of Scotland. And he's going to be sharing his own experience as a student, as an international student coming to the country, and also the experience of being the student president and interacting with other international students. So, welcome to the show, Voke.
Thank you very much, Alma.
Yeah, thank you. You're welcome. So, I start with a question. We would like to get to know you. Who would you say Voke is?
Okay, who is Vorki? So, for the purpose of this program, I'd like to, and also because of my role, I'd just like to hint on using that to introduce myself. So, I am Vorki. I am passionate about people development and coming up with programs and initiatives that can help people become a better version of themselves. Um, I'm passionate about seeing people grow and seeing systems become better than they were before. I like to make things better or leave things better than I made them. Um, yeah, so that's me really.
And I guess that's why you went for the post of the student vice president,
Yeah,
vice
so
president student
development,
development.
yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
So when I saw the ad come out 2 years ago about some of the things that they needed us to do, and it just really ticked or clicked for me because those are like things I used to do even before I came to the UK. I organized and still organize events for people. So when I saw student development in my head, I interpreted it as people development. So it cuts across not just students, but also I was looking at lecturers, I was looking at just even people in the community and how I could bring all of my experience, good and bad, into the role. And that's why I ran and happy that I won and we've been able to make
Some impact.
yeah.
Okay, so let's rewind back a bit. What is your story? So, why did you come to do your master's? You're currently doing an MSc, right, in computing
Advanced computing in big data.
advanced. That's a sounds
Yeah,
very tough.
yeah. So it just really looks very big, but it's just data
Data
analytics and
analytics.
all
Okay.
of the many. It's just that it's big data.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. So, what's the story behind your coming over to Scotland to do an MSc?
Okay, so I am very passionate about marketing, and one of the I do really love. In fact, before now, I used to work as a marketing executive with one of the biggest technology distributors in Africa, and we're about a team of six, and we used to do really really big projects, B2B, worked with Microsoft, Cisco, IBM. We used to do product launches, so we're able to manage all of those things as a marketing team. And one of the um, global companies I really love and I see how they're able to drive marketing is Nike, um, Google. I always fascinated at how they're able to know what the consumers want. Apple, all of that, how they're able to um, make products that people would just gravitate towards and how their marketing campaigns was going or how it's going, Coca-Cola, all of those, successful campaigns that you do. And I know those things are being influenced by data. They're being driven by data. And how can I be part of that? How can I, take part of that successful trend? How can I be one of those key people in the big data sector? And so that's what influenced, my decision to wanting to come study big data here in the UK at the University of the West of Scotland.
Okay.
And it's been, great, really.
You have not regretted that decision.
No, it's challenging
Good.
because
Okay.
when you hear
What do you mean
Yeah,
challenging?
so first the name, Advanced Computing in Big Data. So it's just big words. And then there's a lot of things that you need to learn. You're in a new environment. You have all of the resources, which is great. However, you've not been in school for like almost a decade, and then you're coming in to learn some of these things. You know, it's good that you have all of those experiences working with those companies. However, you are in a new environment, and then you're having to learn certain things, coding and all of that. So, but it's been really good.
Okay, so apart from the challenge you experience in terms of the course or subject itself, like the coding you mentioned, what other challenges did you experience coming into the country as an international student?
Well, I would say the very first thing is language. So let me
Language, but
yeah.
we speak English here and they
No,
speak
no,
English
no,
back.
no, no, you
You're
don't.
Nigerian, right?
Yeah, yeah, I'm from Nigeria.
So,
So no, so actually when I got to
do you mean
Glasgow,
accent?
yeah. So the accent and so
Accent.
yeah, the language, right? So
Okay.
I'm not even going to try and downplay it and say I am accent. I'm going to say language,
Okay.
right? So for example, you're Nigerian. When a person says they want to we or they are going for a we stop, what does that mean in Nigerian English? You know, so it's not just the accent; it's also in the structure
Yeah.
and how
Yeah.
certain things are said. So when I came in, there was just a lot of things I struggled to understand, right? And the terminologies. So the first thing was first thing was the language. Sorry, on how we communicate very differently, right? I think at some point I was like, you know, we've been learning English right from probably when we were born, and then you're coming here and this is where the accent comes in, and then you're hearing things that you can't. It will take you like maybe after a while someone has said something before you are able to process
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
understand what they are saying. So that was the first thing. Second thing was
So
in
sorry to cut you. So how
yeah.
does that impact on, how do you think, or how did that impact on you receiving lectures? Was there any negative impact? Because I know students come and I hear sometimes they struggle with even understanding what
Yeah.
the lecturers or, what is being taught.
So the
How
good
did that
thing for
affect
my
you?
university is that we have like our lecturers or our tutors. They are from different
Okay, that's good.
countries.
Yeah.
So some of them are even like international lecturers or people who are from not from the UK really. And so it's kind of like easy because they understand because they've been here for a while, so they understand what it's like for you as a student coming from another country, and so they take it like really slow. My point from my answer was from just living here, not necessarily like the university.
Not the
Yeah, yeah, but
teaching.
the
Okay.
teaching style is really cool
Okay,
because
that's
they
good.
understand what it's like to come from a different country, and I'm sure they had some of those challenges also. So it's pretty easy for them to communicate.
No, definitely, I
Yeah,
agree with you because I do teach,
yeah,
and
yeah,
obviously, I sometimes I feel okay, my accents, the students are not understanding me, but it's something we learn. We adapt our teaching style, maybe speaking slowly, pronouncing your words, slower so that you communicate. So,
yeah.
so you were talking about language in the broader sense.
Yeah, in the broader sense, man, it's very different. I wanna Ghana doesn't. Then you're here, and but now it's good. Like I'm able to understand, better. Sometimes I even think I would like to think in my head I'm having like a Scottish accent a bit, but we're getting there.
Okay, so language, what other challenge
So
did
information,
you,
really,
information, okay.
the way we communicate here is very different. Coming from where we're from, it's you mix everything. So it's hearsay, did you hear, did you not hear, but here it's almost everything is in the books. You have to read, you have to check your mails. If you're waiting for someone to read their mails and come and tell you this is what's, it just doesn't really work here. So you find out that a lot of students or people may lose out on certain information just because it did not look, even when the information is staring right at you. And that's one of the challenges that I see that some international students, and again, this is just my experience. So for other international students, it could be different for them, and they could come from like different backgrounds. or for me, that was something I kind of like really struggled with. But I adapted really quickly because you're in a system, and coming in here you have to try and adapt because that's how you survive. And that's how I was even able to see some of the males, and that's why I took the opportunity for the role. I think other challenges may be housing. Sometimes you have the resource, you have like the money to get the house, but you do not. The house is not just available. Sometimes it could be that the house is even available, but you do not have the necessary documents that is needed. Sometimes it's because you don't even know that these things. It's like my first week when I got here, then I had cash, and I went to this hostel because as a then you're new, you don't know, don't know anybody here, and they refused to accept cash. They were like, no, it's everything is contactless and or card. And I was really, really confused because how am I supposed to have a card, right, when I'm just arriving from the airport, like directly, but there's that almost auto response that you get from this. We cannot do this, so there is no other way. That's like one challenge I really face because coming from where we come from, there will always be a, okay, let us see what we can do, right? But here it's a no, no. There is yes is yes, no is no. The same response you get via mail is the same response you get in person. It's almost like there's this program, like this is it. But I'm grateful to God that I was able to get someone who, I could do like an exchange, and in person helped me pay. There's loneliness. You're here.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's really, really difficult because just even the way people interact here is different. Again, from my experience, it could be different for other international students or other people. You come here and you do not have like an established Nigerian community, and so you don't even know how to go about certain things. There's one thing reading, there's another thing putting it into practice. So even if I read all of those things, sometimes you need someone who's able to hold you and say, this is what you need to do, this is how to go about it. So there's that, and the loneliness thing really affects your mental health because you are in a place where um, everything is just very different. Like in Nigeria, you could see places to go to, parties, events, shows. Here, even the noise level is minimal, and where we come from. We are very vibrant, and we like to have fun. So those are some of like the challenges that you face at first when you come here, trying to even get to meet with people, and how do you even communicate. Another thing I think again is communication, and that also comes with language. Some of the conversations I've had in past weeks with my colleague at work is, how people can get into trouble without them even knowing. And one of them is in the way we say certain words. So I remember I gave them an example saying, if I tell you that, oh, I flashed you, I've not even finished the statement and there was this look on their face. I'm like, you see, I am not, that's not, because they have like a different meaning here. But for us, it's different. Or when you say words like daft, for us, it's a different meaning. So that brings us to the diversity of having all of these people here, and that could also be very challenging because now you are in a mix with people where everything is sort of like really different. So it's navigating that step by step process on integrating into the system fully and just not getting into trouble and surviving. So there's like a lot of challenges, but I'll just stop at those few ones.
No, thank you for sharing that. I do know, yeah, international students go through a lot of challenges, but I also know that, I mean, because I, lecture in university, I've been doing that for years now, that the universities, and I'm bold enough to say many, if not all universities, put in place different support systems
Yeah.
for international students. Okay. And I don't think a lot of them make use of the support systems. Why do you think that's the case?
If you're not used to a system that provides support, and then you come to a place
There's so much
where there's
help
so much help,
available. You don't want to make use of
sometimes
it.
you're even afraid. You're like, what if it's almost like I am? So I think, I don't want to say it because I'm not an authority in psychology and all of those things yet, but I think sometimes people are just afraid to ask for help because they don't want to look like they're either bothering someone or they just do not want to stress anybody, right? So the help is there. Again, that's where the communication and information thing comes in.
There's communication, okay. I
Yeah,
know there's lots of communication. They send emails, but I know you've touched upon the
yeah,
fact that
yeah,
some cultures are not used to reading information
yeah,
and checking
yeah,
emails.
yeah,
They have induction
yeah.
for international students,
So the communication is two ways. So the universities are putting out the communication or the information,
but there's no,
but there is no. So it's
not being
it's sending
received.
and receiving,
Yeah,
right? There is
okay,
that
okay.
willingness to want to even receive the information. So sometimes it's also about clear messaging from the universities, right? So it's a 50-50 thing. So yes, the support is there, right? Maybe it could be the communication style. It could be the person even receiving it. How are they listening, or how are they receiving that information? It could also be just for people not wanting to feel like they're disturbing the system or a person, or maybe support is far.
I was going to say, I like the fact you brought communications there, because I was going to say, when you say it's 50-50, one party is doing everything, giving the message, but the other party, because of culture, certain mindsets or setback, they are not able to receive it. And how is that problem solved? But I think you said communication style. So can you expand on that?
So, you know
Can you use an
how,
example?
yeah. So, you know how we have like different communication channels now, and that's what we are currently even doing right now at our, student union. We're trying to think of other channels through which we can communicate to our students. So emails are not just the only ones. You have posters, you have newsletters, you have social media. And the current trend now is TikTok. So, from our generation, I don't want to say your generation. So, some people are still stuck on Facebook, Instagram. In fact, recently I was talking to someone about.
So sorry, so Facebook and Instagram, are they outdated,
So
or they are for a certain generation? I
So,
know my
so,
kids are always like,
so,
Facebook is for old
yeah,
people.
so that's what they said. I didn't say it, but I'll answer my question.
Okay.
So I think it's for a certain type of people, and
A certain
for
age range.
certain age range,
Okay.
and also depends on what you're looking out for. But currently now, because of our attention span is dropping
Drop in
massively,
every time,
so
every
it's
minute.
about adapting your communication style to what's trending. Not necessarily following the bandwagon, but just still trying to make a difference using those channels. So it's about implementing some of those things, which is what we are exploring right now to see how we can further communicate better to
Can
students.
you give, for the purpose of the audience listening, just an insight? You don't have to expose the whole thing, an insight into what you're doing in terms of adapting these different platforms to
Okay,
reach
so
certain targets.
so currently now we're using TikTok. It's new, but we put our communication on TikTok. Basically, it's short form content, and just goes out there. People do not like to read 4 paragraph email, so how can we summarize that and put it like in video? Also, using video content, audio visual. An example, or one of the ways I try to explain this form of communication is, if you've read a lot of books, if we ask you to like summarize, chapter by chapter, you probably struggle. But if you've seen a movie, growing up, you
Yeah,
are able to
yeah.
tell me. I don't know if you remember, many years ago, we used to watch Super Story, and it used to air on Thursday. When you go on, if you didn't watch it and you go on Friday, right? The person who had seen it on Thursday will be able
The
to
narrator
tell
will
you
sit down.
everything. It's
Yeah.
just the way our mind is being
Yeah.
shaped.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's using some of those short form content, video content or audio content to communicate. So TikTok helps, like I'm doing promotion for them, but it's okay. TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram. You also need to understand that because of the age range you need to be able to have a presence in all of this.
No, the platforms,
So
social media
yes, Facebook
platforms.
is for people of a certain age range. We also need to understand that most of the international students coming in are of that age range, right? Because they're matured students coming
Yeah.
in.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the international students coming in are postgraduate people who already have like 15 years, 20 years working experience. So when they come here, they need to know that there is a channel or a form through which they can even understand certain information. So it's about adapting to all styles or age range and, all types.
Does the same thing, would you say it also applies to social engagement? So I know you mentioned loneliness as part of the challenges international students face. And like I said, I also know that they organize lots of social events. But again, the international students, their presence is always limited. So would you also say it's the same issue of communicating these events to them, or there's something else why they are not attending
I
them?
think it's interest. I think it's what interests you. So here, the kind of events that I have seen that we have here are very limited to certain people. So as a student and you've had like maybe 15, 20 years experience in the banking sector where you probably a manager and then we organize an event for party, right? So when I get there, who am I coming to meet with, right? People who are probably my children's age mate or people who, and then so that's just an aspect, right? And the other thing is also proximity to where some of these things are. Some international students, of course, because they have families, are here with their families. You don't expect a mom or a dad to leave their kids at home. And again, this is where support comes in. Back, international students for some countries, it's kind of like easy for you to have kids who are looked after by your relatives.
Yeah.
Here, it's very different. You have all of those challenges here and there, right? You don't want to get into trouble. So you have to now choose between, do I go engage with people or do I stay at home with kids, right? There's also, single people who do not necessarily have families or kids. They have to maybe work sometimes. And that's one of the challenges I face sometimes with fixed events and you don't get students attending. Sometimes they do last minute cancellation, of course, because they have to go work. They need to be able to
Other
pay rent or other
commitments.
commitments and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes even interviews that just comes up at any time. So yeah, it's all of those things really. But we try as much as we can to encourage people. I think the primary thing there is just interest. Like, what do I stand to,
To
gain
gain
or
from it. Yeah.
well, we try to encourage people, students to attend these events because that's where you get to meet people. I have met with a lot of amazing people, not just because I am the one coordinating some of these events, but even just attending them. That's how you get to build your network here, coming into a place where you don't even know anybody or the people you know, you need to like meet new people. Yeah.
Okay, so that's a good point that I hope some people watching can take away, the putting yourself
Out
out
there.
there
Yeah.
to actually make
Yeah.
connections
Yeah.
when you go to a new
Yeah.
environment is very important. And that brings me to the aspect of diversity. What are your thoughts? I know we had a discussion before we started recording. What are your thoughts or views on diversity as you have
Okay.
probably experienced it so far?
Um, so just try and use certain examples and, just so people can get it. So diversity for us is new.
When you
It's,
say for us, is
for
new.
international students, right?
Okay,
So
okay.
we leave it, but it's not very pronounced like where we're coming from. So of course, Nigeria has a lot of diverse cultures, India, Pakistan, all of that. You have like, so, but it's not being preached or spoken about as much as it is being said here, right? But when you come here, that's all you hear: equality, diversity, and inclusion. It's, and again, this is my experience. So diversity here, it's almost like it's now being worded or said like more than it's even being lived. So
So it's more words than
yeah,
action.
so I just sometimes think it's I just think it's like a tick the box, thing, diversity. How are we being really diverse here as a people if sometimes we struggle with even how we are being perceived or how communication is even, goes about. I'll give an example. There are sometimes we go for certain conferences. I'll try not to mention their names because I don't want them to receive a lot of fire. But you go for certain conferences and all they talk about is diversity, inclusion, equality, diversity, inclusion, equality. And then you have people from over 100 countries, right? And it's time for food, or it's time for music, or it's time for, and it's only one kind of song or only one particular type of thing that's been done. And so a lot of other people who do not understand those things are just kind of lost. I know it's difficult. And I know we don't talk about how difficult diversity could be. We just make it look like, oh, it's very easy, but it's really, really difficult. And so that's where grace comes in. So I'm trying to like give those guys grace. But when you talk about diversity and you do not include the culture, the food, the music, the sports, and all of those things, and you are serving everybody bread, cheese, and grass. So grass is the other term for salad, right? And you are leaving the other people who all their lives they've known to
Grass is
eat.
the other term for salad.
That's the just
Where?
me. That's just
Okay.
and you just have that sort of like doesn't necessarily include a certain group of people, right? That's just an example. When you talk about even languages and culture, right? For me, I remember one of the events that we did, what we call item 7 in Nigeria. Yeah, you have to do different events, different things, activities before you now get to item 7, right? One of the things I learned here is you serve food first before you even start anything, right? I am happy to learn all of those things, right? Diversity. But you don't really get to see a lot of our people here, right? The home people here. um jump on that diversity thing. Like how much are they willing to learn about some of so these are things that we struggle with.
So sorry if I'm getting you right. So I think what you're trying to say is that diversity is two ways. So it's
Yeah.
not the international students coming and learning about diversity, but also like the people, the local community also willing to learn about cultures, different cultures. Okay.
Yeah. So it's diversity is almost looking like a one-way thing. It's ought to be, to and fro. It ought to be from the two. There's so much. Imagine all your life you've known something to be something for maybe 40 years. And then you come to a place where it's now different. Yeah, so there is that place of learning when you get into a new environment, but there's also that grace, right? And that's where diversity should come in to teach people and to give them second thought chances to make mistakes, to not know certain things, right? Give people the opportunity to want to learn generally. So I'm not talking about a particular, I'm just like generally. And that's something that personally I struggle with. Like it's really, really, and I know a lot of internationals, they've come to me because one of the things being a student leader is you get to hear a lot of stories. Most of them you can't even share because of privacy reasons, and you have to protect them and all of that. So those are some like challenges that students will face. It's a new terrain. Diversity could mean anything for certain people. It's even trying to understand what diversity means for you and what it means for me, and how we can actually coexist together, with our different, lifestyles. Yeah.
But then, what would your advice be in terms of, you said students making lots of mistakes, they come into a place and the, the community being able to forgive. I think that's what you said, and
Second chances.
understanding
Yeah.
second chances. But then there's so much, and probably it relates back to what you said about culture and reading information. But then there's so much information out there in terms of policies, things you should do, things you shouldn't do, so much guidelines that are always put in place. So how do you bridge that gap in terms of, we've told you this is the culture, this is, you're coming to a new place, this is how we live. And I know it's difficult for that adaptation, but then things are written, there's
Yeah.
signs everywhere for you to know. So how do you actually bridge them in terms of, so I think my question is, in what way are you able to support or help these people coming in so that they don't make such careless mistakes that they do, and like you said, land themselves maybe in trouble.
Okay, so I would like to think it's a responsibility thing from from the student and from,
Absolutely,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So, what ways are we using to do, or do I think we can use to do all of those things? Um, I think there are a lot of measures. One of them is in regards to communication. Communication is very key, and those channels that we use to communicate some of these things. So it could be that rather than having a 60-page book, right, or a website that has like 60 different pages, right? If you're able to collapse it and then we take it bit by bit, right? Communities. So for example, in my uni, we have lots of societies. Societies are one of those ways through which you can you can pass information to people who have similar interest, right? And because you understand the language. So if, for example, we have an Indian student society, and there is an information that's just been broadcasted, or just came out recently. What we do is, as a society, you communicate it in the way that
Yeah.
the people that are part of the community can understand. And I know when we were talking earlier, you mentioned about a group who, for example, were trying to solve this housing issue. Now, when you're coming in, I think those are some of the communities, organizations that students or people should be able to reach out to, right? To say, okay, this is what I intend doing, right? These are support and advice systems. What can I do? How best do I go about this issue? How best do I? So you don't get into trouble, or don't spend much more money than you ought to have spent, or even maybe get it for free. Just a little more advisors in harm anybody. So it's about getting into the right community and asking the right questions to the right people, right? Because there's a lot of, misinformation going on around
Yeah,
with,
yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
especially with communities and, um, you know, so
That's interesting. You said something very interesting and good, and I agree with it. It's true. Responsibility.
yeah,
So it's not only the responsibility of the universities. I
it's
know, like I said, I've been in university for like how many years now. We do a lot in terms of trying to support students, all students, particularly international students, because we are aware of the challenges they face. But the responsibility of the student to actually seek for this information, put themselves out there, ask questions. You also touched upon, you said communities, going into these groups or being involved in one community or the other, so that you get the right information,
information.
right relevant information. Yeah, so I think, yeah, those are really, really important things that I think students should make use of.
Yeah, even before they come here. So, um, there's some communities that would even reach out to you just by knowing that, oh, you're coming in. Some of them will even come pick you. And then they have like community induction. So like you mentioned earlier that, some universities will even do inductions and people will still not attend and all of that. There are different ways to go about it. So right now, I know a lot of universities are exploring online and offline methods of induction. So, okay, you can't come in person, because for whatever reason, can you join online? Can these inductions be recorded so you can watch them or listen to them, um, at your own pace. So those are like different ways to help and bridge the communication gap between the universities and
And the
students.
students.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay, you said you recently organized a cultural event.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about it?
So it was in 2022 and we had like this Black History Month event. So it was Black History Month in October. And so for me, I have never heard of. So in Nigeria is the most populous Black nation in the world, right?
Really?
Yeah.
How do you
So
know? Do you
that's
have
what.
facts to prove
Yeah.
that?
Yes. Yes.
You
Yes.
do you have facts?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so for us, we are Black, right? So in fact, I didn't even know anything about being Black until I got here, right? So you see it in movies, and that's what I was talking about, knowledge. So you can read stuff and you think you know it until you
Until you
experience it, and then
experience
you're
it,
like,
it's a
oh
whole
wow, like this
different
is a
thing.
different
Yeah,
thing, right? So
absolutely. Yeah.
and then I hear it's Black History Month, and I'm trying to process what exactly is Black History Month, and then you go and start reading stuff about all of the things that happened, because we're not all those things in schools. You have to now like responsibility, go and read about them.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to create an avenue where we can have some sort of awareness for people to know what Black History Month is. And one of those ways was, so I always say that one of the ways to introduce people to culture is through music, food, dance, and maybe sports, like games. And I thought to bring everybody together to just try out new dishes, new dance, new music, something they've not experienced before. And we invited the entire community to just come and, see what it's like to be Black in a sense. And it turned out to be really good. We had people come from over 15 countries or nationalities. We had people come from as far as London to attend, the event in Scotland, because it felt like that was the first time anything like that was happening at the university. And it turned out to be really good. We had cultural nights, we had movie nights, we had like paintings, and we did like different events just to showcase the beauty and the culture of the Black people. And also
And how
give
do you think?
opportunities
Yeah,
to
sorry. Okay, no, sorry,
also
continue.
give opportunity to like other African countries to come in, and so that was like my very first experience for Black History Month, even though I was the one organizing it with my team. But it turned out to be really good.
Okay, I wanted to ask, sorry to cut you. I wanted to ask how you felt the impact was on the community after that event. Did you get any like immediate response from people that attended or from the university community? I mean, just generally, how do you think the
So I
overall?
kept so for weeks you kept hearing, wow, that was a good event. That was impactful. Oh, I never knew this was this before. I never knew that was that before. And even for us, it was a very funny learning curve. That was the events where, I was talking about how you had to in Nigeria, you had to do certain activities before you serve food.
Okay.
It was in that event that I was told, no, you
You
have to.
serve food
So
first.
that's where diversity comes in, right? So even though we're trying to do our cultural thing, we are also taking in the culture of, this place here. We're saying, okay, let's try and see how we can marry both of them together. And so we had to like, serve. And so there was that part even for us that we got to learn. So it wasn't even just the university community or the community at large, people who came from afar. It was the fact that you could, marry different cultures together. Like I said, we had people from over 15 nationalities coming. They've never heard of certain things, right? You see people trying out new food and they're asking them questions about what do you think, and then they're giving you their raw, unedited, thoughts,
Feedback.
feedback, like, oh wow,
Yeah.
and it was funny because you get to see people trying out things and doing wrong matches. For example, people mixing egusi soup and jollof rice, or people dancing I'm a piano differently. So it was all of those talks, going
Yeah.
around, the university and community, when is the next one? When people begin to ask when is the next one, then you did something
You
really
know he did
good.
something right here.
So yeah,
And
it was well received, and that was one of the major significant events that got us the award. So my union is the if you put it on Google, I like to just brag about this sometimes. I like go on Google and type Best Student Union of the Year 2003.
I've seen it.
2023.
I think you put it up on
Yeah, that
LinkedIn.
was part of like the summary
Yeah, on LinkedIn.
I
Yeah,
posted.
yeah,
So
yeah. Oh, well done.
yeah,
So you did this in 2022.
yeah,
Why
2022.
didn't you do it last year?
So last year we had like a different view
Okay.
towards it, because now we've created that sort of awareness, right? So now it's about careers, like how can Black people take advantage of the opportunities that are present here? How can we, like you said, put ourselves out there in places where, even though we sort of maybe do not even feel part of,
Yeah.
how can we.
What you're doing is very important, Voke, very significant for building community resilience. And I mean, that's why I invited you over. So you're not only building resilience within the Black community, but also within university community, international students as well. All these events
Yeah,
that you are involved in. So well done for that.
thank you.
You said something about, putting yourself forward, I think,
Yeah,
or I had mentioned it earlier on. And that brings me to a discussion I had with you, imposter syndrome, because you would agree that someone putting themselves out there is very scary. There's a lot of the cultural differences is one of the reasons people don't, because they're not used to maybe people speaking, like you said, understanding the different accents or understanding the culture, the way things are done. So they rather sit in their comfort zone. Now you have gone against all odds in terms of you're still studying, you're already student, vice president, you have so many roles. I read that report, which I'm coming to the report, so many roles, so many things you're involved in. How did you do it? How did you overcome? Did you have any imposter syndrome, or are you just naturally a very confident person?
no.
You're not. Okay, interesting. So I want people to hear, how did you overcome that fear or imposter syndrome and go out all out?
So I know you heard this a lot of times, and it's being to sound very cliche, but it's doing it afraid, really. Like, imposter syndrome is real, right?
It is, absolutely. I agree.
It's very real. Sometimes you are even questioning, do I deserve to be in this room? When you're sitting with people who have had over 30 years experiences, and then you're talking, sometimes they are listening to you, and as you're talking, you're like, are these people really listening to me because they want to listen, or they're just being polite, right? So for me, it's just about doing it afraid. So when
But how do you even do it afraid? You know what fear is?
yeah, so
Fear is real.
yeah,
So how do you even get to do it when
so
you can't even go ahead or go forward?
again, like I always like to say, this is my own experience, right?
Yes, please. It's your experience we want to
Yeah.
know,
So
want to hear about.
I always tell myself that there's something I would there's something worse than failure, and that's regret. And I don't deal with regret very well. So I'd rather fail than sit back and start thinking, what if I had done this? What could have gone wrong? What could have gone right? And then the other thing I always try to tell myself is, what's the worst thing that will happen? Do you understand? Like, Max, no, you won't die. as long as you still be alive, then, just do it. And that's why I like Nike and their slogan, just do it. So I always try to emphasize and say, just do the right thing. Because when you say just do it, some people don't take it and
It could
say,
be,
go and do
just do
anything.
what
Just do what
actually. Yeah,
exactly.
what are
So,
you doing?
just do the right thing. So for me, I'd rather fail than live with the regrets of, and also, you don't necessarily, I know there's been this talk of you need to have the whole picture, right? I don't know where that stuff or story came out from, because we're told a lot as people growing up, you need to have the vision of everything. Well, it's not true. In the real world, right? When you even check out all of those, big companies that you know of, the Amazon, the YouTube, and all of that, when you go back and check their
Absolutely, I
story,
agree with you.
there is no full vision. They just started
I like
and,
that you said that.
you
Sorry,
know,
because even starting this podcast, I've had questions the same thing.
mm-hmm,
So, what's the end goal? And
mm-hmm,
I'm like, I have never really thought that
mm-hmm,
far.
mm-hmm.
I just had this vision and I'm just running with it.
Yeah.
Just started.
Yeah,
So I agree with you.
and even when you look at the story from Abraham, he was just told to get up and move, right? There was no, so if God is not even giving you the entire picture, right? But he's asking you, it's just about also trusting God. When he says move, and then you just move and you do stuff and hope for the best, right? The other thing for me is, as you go along, you're either going to learn or it's going to make you a better person. Really, having taken up this role, I have seen massive improvement, even in the way I deal with things. It's like you study about war and then you go into war.
Into
Now you're
war
able to
yourself.
practice all
Yeah.
of the things that you've been learning for years. You're able to test all of those things. So it's doing it afraid, learning to live with failure other than regret, or choose. You can either choose to live with regret, or you can choose to fail and learn from the failure and keep doing it. So it's not been easy. I know sometimes we try to make it look like, oh, it's courage. No, it's not courage. It's doing it afraid and just like, what's the worst that can happen? I know this is also something I say to myself, but I don't advise people. No, it's not for everybody. I'm always like, if you had 6 months to leave, what would you do?
Yeah.
Right? And that has really helped me a lot, because I'm able to frame goals into 6 months. I'm able to say, by this time I should have been able to have done this, and think about the bigger picture of not just you. So most of the things I've been able to do, myself and my team is predominantly made of international students, and we've seen so much improvement. We are sort of like the solution center, we're like the voice for international students. People want to approach. So if you go to a place and everybody is looking or being different, but then you spot somebody who sort of like either looks like you, talks like you,
definitely. You
just
gravitate
gravitate towards that person. It's just
Absolutely.
how we
It's
are
the
as
law of
human beings.
nature. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just how we are.
natural. Yeah.
And so you've seen people, even become more confident in the way they are able to, ask for help, seek support, and then that you're able to speak their language, that you're able to say, you know what, here they try to be very polite. Sometimes you know how to communicate to your people. You know how to tell them, don't do this thing. Not in the nicest way, but they will get it, right? So it's also thinking about the bigger picture of not just you, of what could be the result. How can this really impact people? Which is why I think what true leadership is, or servant leadership is, where you are able to think, outside of yourself, right? So I think that's what even helps, just shrink the fear. You're like, I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this to help my neighbor or two other people, or three people, or, and yeah, so it's not been all rosy. It's been a lot of challenges. The way the role is in Nigeria is different from how it is here, even in other African countries, or other countries internationally. You know, here you have to report to certain people, right? Unlike where we're coming from, where you are judge, jury, and what's the other one? You're everything. You could wake up tomorrow and decide certain things. Here you have to follow through. certain processes. You have to do
You're
certain things.
accountable for all
You're
your
accountable for
actions.
everything,
Yeah.
and so sometimes you might even get misunderstood by your own fellow people because, and you don't blame them because they're coming from a place where this is how I think it should be. So when you're trying to explain anything to them, say, no, that's not how it works here. Or here, you have to do certain things to follow this process or that process. So it's, also trying to create that sort of awareness for even your cousins, like I like to call them, our community people. So it's been amazing, really, and I am grateful for the opportunity that I've gotten to be elected twice across 5 campuses. Is not something that just happens, you know. It's also people showing you their support and telling you that they believe in you and they support you, right? You don't win an election twice, and your first election is in 2 weeks. Right? You don't. So all of the cultural things I'm talking about, like I had not even understood them as I when I won the election. Shout out to our darling, beloved Nigerian community, because you know us.
Supported you.
Yeah,
No, thank you
yeah,
very much for sharing your story. And like I said earlier on, you are doing, impactful work within the university community, the Black community, and international student community as well. So thank you for that. Now, at the end, well, about to close. At the end of every episode, I always ask my guests to say to give a message to someone that is listening to this, just by way of encouragement, but based on what you yourself have been through. So, what message would you, give to someone that is listening?
okay. So I'll say put yourself out there. Do not feel defeated even when you do not get all of the acknowledgement that you need to get or that is not working well. Like yourself, I'm very happy that you're doing this right now and giving people opportunity to be able to share that story of resilience. Um, my advice would be choose to live with failure rather than regret. Like just do it. The worst thing that'll happen is a no or you fail, but that's not like the end. And lastly, take opportunities, take every opportunity, put yourself in rooms where you do not even feel like you deserve to be there. And learn as much as you can from everybody. Learn as much as you can from everybody. Doing some of these events and creating these experiences of people, I've come to see that we are very beautiful people inside, and we're just looking for a means of expression, and it's in that networking, putting yourself out there. That is how you can experience beauty that's in each and every one of us. If you're just stuck in your own world, right, you won't really get the opportunity to experience people and life. Life is not just you. So for me, that's it. Being an international student or coming here has been, you know, beautiful for me. I've had to meet with people who I can't fly to all of the countries, but as an international
Yeah.
student and you're here, you're meeting people from India. So by chance, so by virtue of that, you've sort of like experienced India or Bulgaria or Brazil. I met someone from Afghanistan. Yeah, and I'm like, I'd really like to learn about your culture and all of those things. So it's putting yourself out there, and there is so much that you can get from taking all of those opportunities, and be safe.
Very, very, very. I like that. I like what you have said.
Thank you.
Everyone is beautiful. It doesn't matter if you're black, white,
Yeah.
if you're from China, Pakistan, India, Afghanistan, everybody is beautiful. I think what makes it a bit challenging is that cultural barrier. But once you're able to break through, be inquisitive, don't live in your own bubble, your own space, like you come from wherever and you just want to stay in your own comfort zone, associate with only your people, then it's difficult for you to actually break out or to do other things. So it's being open-minded, knowing that everybody has, beauty inside of them. Thank you very much, Woke, for being on the show. And as always, I would say be encouraged, get enlightened to stay empowered. And if you have any story that you want to share, personal story, drop me an email at livingresilient101@gmail.com, and I will get in touch. Thank you, and watch out for the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you.